it's really hard to know how to grow people or what frequency you need to grow people or how you need to go to that next phase if you don't really know where you're going over the next 1, 2, 3 years, right? So it's really important to have that plan. You can have a formal strategic plan, or you can have maybe just some specific growth goals or some different pieces through your C-suite. But if that doesn't happen, it's really challenging to have that aligned with a succession plan, because your succession plan just feels a little bit more, siloed. So but when you're able to do that, and this kind of ties into working with a separate client where they didn't have a strategic plan, and one of their big issues was we feel like we're just growing, but we don't really have any sort of plan for our growth. We're just kind of at the whims of whatever the market's doing or whatever, just the seasonality of what we do. And so what we did is say, well, let's see what growth can look like for you guys that you feel like is sustainable. And then let's work backwards from that, because you have to have a North Star. You have to know exactly where you're headed within your organization to say, now do we have enough people to fill all of our seats? Do we have the right folks in the right seats to help us out? And then that second part is just ensuring long-term commitment from leadership. I've seen this happen, unfortunately, not very often, but sometimes with any strategic plan or succession plan, where folks will get excited, you'll build something really great and amazing, and then it'll just kind of drop off. So that's one big piece of my heart that I'm really big and focused on, is how to make sure that that's continual, at least once a quarter, making sure that it's being followed up on and it's being talked about and it's being updated, because you never want to go through all that work and then have it just sit and collect dust. So this is a big one there. Okay, so let's just talk about overcoming some common challenges. And this was touched on earlier as well, just addressing kind of that resistance to change. So whether it's specifically that change around someone's development and their role, whether that's being maybe a little bit more transparent within your organization of how you're wanting to grow people. Maybe it's implementing a new leadership program, right? I mean, there can be some folks who are all about it, and there's others who are like, oh, I've been here forever, I don't need this, come on, either way, right? So what we want to do is address some of those changes, and one of the best ways to address changes, can I just share a little secret with you guys? So how many of you guys have what I would call influencers? And I'm not talking about any Kardashian or anybody on Instagram or anything like that, but they are influencers, and sometimes these influencers are on your team and sometimes they're not on your team. By team, I mean the way you want to go. You guys know who I'm talking about? They walk in the room and they're the people who can help kind of turn everybody else's heads. They just have influence, whether that's because of their personality, whether that's because they've been there for a certain amount of time, whatever it may be, right? And sometimes these people are your biggest advocates, they're your biggest cheerleaders, and sometimes you're kind of I really hope that they're on board with this one, right? Because they can help steer the ship a little bit. And so what I want to challenge you is, as you're rolling this out or as you do any sort of change, is make sure that you're talking to those people first, that you pick them specifically. So this can be, again, your top cheerleaders, those who are super committed, those who are your rah-rah folks that you want to help move forward. And then also make sure that you're spending time before you roll anything else out and pull in some of those influencers that could kind of go either way. Or sometimes maybe tend to be a little bit more negative about something, and ask for their help. I did this one time recently where we had a lead supervisor, and the supervisor could turn that head pretty easily for everybody. And so I said, we were working through it with the team, and I told the manager and kind of worked through this with them. But they said, hey, you have a lot of influence here. People know you. People really respect what you have to say. I want to share this with you first. I want you to know where we're going with this, and I really need your help. I want your buy-in. I want to walk through why we're doing it. I want you to throw out any, if you have any, pieces that you want to kind of poke holes in, let's do that now before it's rolled out. Because when this doesn't happen, sometimes you'll roll it out and you're all excited, and then that person who has a lot of influence is the one poking holes after the fact. Or even worse, during the meeting, right? Which we don't want. So I'd rather be proactive, and I'd rather ask them up front and kind of get their buy-in and help them see, that I do want their help with that change. And then the second piece there is just managing gaps in leadership and skills. So we all Doesn't matter who we are, what role we do, what we have, especially in the roles that you guys get to see. You guys really get to see all of the organization. As HR, you guys get to see and have probably a deeper snapshot than most other people, right? And so if there are some of those gaps in, specifically with leaders or with anyone in particular, what are some of those themes and how can we address that through that change? So if it's specifically, hey, it seems like, I think people pleasing was mentioned earlier by somebody who popped up on stage, right? That's actually a really common thing that happens not only for leaders, but just for a lot of service-based organizations, where we're too afraid to make somebody feel a certain way, or we kind of like, oh, I want them to still like me, and so I don't know how I can deliver this to them. Could be a leader, could be a coworker, whatever it might be. Or I really struggle with giving feedback because I don't want to make somebody feel bad. But there's certain ways to do that can actually really help your organization to be more transparent, to be more honest, to be more, just to be able to grow. And so what we want to do is be able to address some of those gap areas as well through your guys' process. So hopefully just by applying one takeaway from today's session and talking about the succession framework can help you create some powerful shifts in your organization. And again, we've covered quite a few different areas, but my hope is that there's one piece that you maybe kind of took away that said, gosh, Michael, I want to apply this, or gosh, this one piece stood out to me. And this is really helpful for me because I want to be able to make sure that presentations like this are as effective as possible. And I saw some folks taking notes as well. So I just want to open it up. Is there one thing that you took away, or one thing that you are saying, hey, we want to be able to implement this as we move forward? So it's just helpful for the group as well. I know you guys were taking some notes back there, so I might just pick on you if that's okay. Awesome. So scorecards and really having a visual. And I will say having something like specifically visual that people can focus on, right? I've seen it in so many different ways. Could be literally something in the break room, right, on the wall, right, for everybody. Or it could be an Excel spreadsheet for someone, or it could be a little post-it, like whatever it needs to be, whiteboard. It could be so many different areas. But the scorecards themselves, yeah, they're really powerful. So awesome. Thank you. Anybody else? Katie? Yeah. So just to paraphrase, focusing on asking people who they want to be partnered with, right? Instead of maybe assigning a mentor to someone, right? Yeah, I've seen it work really, really well to have that set up where we all respect certain people for different reasons, right? And sometimes even just personality-wise, we can click with different people. So I think that's really critical and important for people to pick and say, this is the person I want to follow after. I want to learn from them. Or even if it's not necessarily in their specific department or role, they could see how they lead, or they could see how they manage, or they can even just see how they interact. It doesn't, again, have to be leaders specifically, but that can make a big difference. So thank you. All right, anything else you guys want to touch on before I keep moving forward here? I love this quote, so I'm just going to share it real quick. This kind of ties in back to the beginning, but your team won't own it until they feel it, and that's from Coach K. And I love that because, really when we're talking about succession planning, or we're just talking about growth and development, it really needs to be something that kind of, again, connects that head and that heart. So before I move on, I do have something else fun. It's kind of a surprise here at the end. 2 surprises, actually. Any other thoughts or comments, or anything else that I can help address as we keep going forward? You guys good? Feel complete? Okay. So just a real quick recap. So identifying your top talent, implementing a succession plan of any sort. It doesn't have to be perfect, guys. It really doesn't. Again, it just needs to be something that's written down, that's really clear, and that helps you kind of go through those milestones. Fostering that culture of mentorship, which we touched on. And then obviously just leveraging scorecards and progress, making sure everybody knows where they're going, where they're growing, and they have a real specific visual for that is really helpful. Okay, this is one more graph here real quick. This is one piece of what some of the work that I do, and I call it a pulse survey. So what it does is it helps identify some of the gap areas that can commonly be in place for your succession planning and for your leadership teams. And so we charted this over time, and you can see obviously some dips and ups and downs. with different things, but it kind of ties into one-on-ones and satisfaction and development and kind of where are folks going longer term within their organization. One of the last questions down there, which again, I know you guys won't be able to see all the way back over there, is do I feel valued, right? In the work that I do. So all of these things tie into, in part, the culture, but really a deeper piece of how are we developing and growing our teams. And so what I wanted to do is just offer this as just a free pulse survey for you guys. It's 20 of the questions that I've used over the last 17 years, in part with Starbucks, in part with Idaho Central, and with all the teams that I work with currently, and really helping them assess that. And what it does is it helps us say, hey, what are some of the growth areas that you need specifically for implementing that succession toolkit? And so if you want that, I'm just threw a number up here. You can text me. I don't know about you guys, but sometimes email is hard. I don't know why, but it's hard to stay on top of. But if I get a text, I'm probably going to reply to it, right? Or I'm going to reply a little bit faster. So feel free to text me that info as well, just your name and email. And what I'll do is I'll get those free resources to you and help you out that way. So, perfect.